Well, that's all the time we had for today's program. Thanks for joining us. Do get in touch. Let us know what your thoughts are about the program. I'm at Wahiga Mwaura on X. Stay safe wherever you're watching this broadcast from, and thank you so much for your time. But for now, it's goodbye.
This is The World Today with Maryam Moshiri at 6 p.m. in London.
It's 1 p.m. in Washington. I'm Sumi Somaskanda at the White House.
President Trump claims total victory over Iran, but there are big sticking points in the negotiations still to come. The US Defense Secretary says Iran will give up its enriched uranium, or the US will take it out. The truce is still fragile. Iran's Revolutionary Guard have threatened to respond if Israel doesn't stop its attacks in Lebanon. Meanwhile, officials in Lebanon say at least 112 people have been killed, nearly 900 injured in Israeli strikes today. These are live pictures from Beirut. The hospitals there say they are overwhelmed. Emergency services are still searching for people trapped under the rubble. Global stock markets have risen and the price of oil has fallen in response to the deal, despite uncertainty over the reopening of the Straits of Hormuz. All of this coming up on The World Today. Hello and welcome to The World Today on BBC News. Iran and the US have agreed to a conditional 2-week ceasefire during which shipping traffic will be allowed through the Strait of Hormuz. Donald Trump is claiming it as a victory. Iran is also claiming it as a victory. In fact, in the last few hours, it's become even clearer that not all parties are on the same page. Let's take a quick break now and come back to this in a moment. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. We can take you live back to Tel Aviv now here on BBC News and listen in on the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Had we not done that.
Well, the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is giving a press conference right now on the ceasefire deal. Let's listen in.
A 4 to 6 week military operation to dismantle the military threat posed.
You're watching The World Today on BBC News. We are live in Washington with the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt giving us an update on the Iran ceasefire.
The modified plan was a workable basis on which to negotiate that meeting later this afternoon. Thank you, everyone.
Well, that was the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt there talking to reporters. Understandably, a lot of questions about Iran and about those ceasefire negotiations. Let's cross live now to my colleague Sumi Somaskanda, who is also listening in on that. And Sumi, we have so much to talk about, but I guess one of the main things that we heard there that is of relevance and importance is that there will be a delegation sent to Pakistan to negotiate on this ceasefire deal, including the Vice President J.D. Vance. Tell us more. Sumi, thank you very much indeed. And Sumi is outside the White House bringing us the very latest on the Iran ceasefire on The World Today. Do stay with us. We're back at the top of the hour. It's 7 p.m. in London. This is The World Today with Maryam Moshiri. The White House has announced President Trump is dispatching a negotiating team for talks this weekend on ending the war against Iran.
I'm Sumi Somaskanda, live at the White House, where we've just received confirmation that the Vice President, J.D. Vance, will be leading that negotiating team in Pakistan.
Well, the truce is still fragile. Iran's Revolutionary Guards have threatened to respond if Israel doesn't stop its attacks in Lebanon. Meanwhile, officials in Lebanon say Israeli strikes have killed at least 254 people and wounded hundreds more across the country. Global stock markets have risen and the price of oil has fallen in response to the deal, despite uncertainty over the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Also coming up on the programme, the Iran war today. We'll take you through all of today's major developments with correspondents and experts from across the region. Hello and welcome to The World Today on BBC News. Well, in the past half an hour, the White House has said that President Trump is sending a negotiating team to Pakistan for talks with Iran on Saturday. It's all part of efforts to end the war with Iran through a ceasefire negotiation. Both sides have agreed to a 2-week ceasefire during which shipping traffic will be allowed through the Strait of Hormuz. We're just getting another line coming into us from a spokesperson for the Vice President, J.D. Vance. Spokesperson saying that Mr. Vance is returning to Washington on Wednesday from Budapest. Remember, he's been in the region ahead of those Hungarian elections. He's returning to Washington, and as we mentioned before, we know that he'll be going to lead a delegation to Pakistan on Saturday for those peace negotiations. Let's take a short break now. Around the world and across the UK, this is The World Today on BBC News. Well, let's take you back to our top story now, and that is that ceasefire in the Iran war. In the last few minutes, we've heard from the White House Press Secretary, Caroline Leavitt, who has talked very clearly about the negotiations to reach a proper ceasefire deal. She said that there'll be a delegation led by the Vice President, J.D. Vance, going to Pakistan on Saturday. OK, well, Neda, it's good to talk to you again. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us. Neda Atala, correspondent at the National's Beirut Bureau. Well, stay with us. More coverage of the ceasefire agreement is coming up on the Iran war today here on BBC News.
Now on BBC News, a briefing on the latest developments in the Israel-US war in Iran.
Hello, I'm Maryam Moshiri, live from London. This is the Iran war today on BBC News. Over the next few minutes or so, we'll bring you all the key updates on the conflict from the last 24 hours. Well, let's start with some of today's main developments now. The White House has called the agreed 2-week ceasefire with Iran a chance for real peace and a real deal. The US and Israel appear to have suspended their attacks on Iran, and both sides have agreed to meet for talks later this week in Pakistan. Speaking at a Pentagon briefing earlier today, the US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the US could continue to be hanging around in Iran despite the new ceasefire.
Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory on the battlefield. A capital.
Israel continues to strike multiple targets in Lebanon after insisting the US ceasefire with Iran doesn't include its war with Hezbollah. Well, let's start now with this 2-week ceasefire between the US and Iran, with plans to fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The deal was announced 90 minutes before President Trump's deadline was due to expire, in which he had made apocalyptic threats to destroy a whole civilization in Iran if it didn't allow free transit through the strait. Well, the US president said this 10-point plan, which Pakistan helped broker, was a workable basis on which to negotiate. Very different times. Lise, thank you very much indeed. Whether you're joining us on YouTube, on TikTok, on Sounds, radio or TV, thank you so much for your time. We'll be back again tomorrow with the Iran war today on BBC News. Well, Keir Starmer has said there's a real sense of relief, or a sense of real relief at the ceasefire, but a lot of work still needs to be done to make the peace deal last and to restore oil and gas supplies through the Strait of Hormuz. The Prime Minister, who was visiting an airbase in Saudi Arabia, said he wanted to ensure the economic impact of the war was minimised by getting the strait open again. Have a listen. Well, there's more on Jasveen Sangha and the events leading up to the death of Matthew Perry in the documentary Matthew Perry and the Ketamine Queen, which is on BBC iPlayer now. Well, you've been watching The World Today on BBC News. As always, there's more on all the stories that you've seen on the show on the BBC's website. Coming up next is The Context with my colleagues Sumi Somaskanda in Washington and Ben Brown here in London. Stay with us on the BBC.
Hello. Wednesday has been the hottest day of the year so